guides you to meet your destiny.
Here we are again, going to meet our destiny. Castlevania Symphony of the Night. Thank you guys so much for all the views that I got on my Metroid Prime video. That's so awesome. I wasn't expecting to get 20, much less 100, so thank you guys very much. All of this Castlevania gameplay was recorded either on Twitch or YouTube, so leave a subscribe if you'd like to help the channel, and let's get straight into it. As always, I'm going to be showing footage from the first half of the game and exactly one boss fight. Also new this episode and going forward, I'm going to be adding a section at the end called Should You Play This Game in 2023? That's going to be my personal opinion on whether it holds up. So look forward to that at the end. As usual, first up is controls. I think that controls will make or break an older game like this. A lot of games simply didn't have it figured out at the time. I am happy to report that that is not the case here. The controls were very satisfying. Coming into this game, I was pretty nervous because I had prior experience playing Bloodstained Ritual of the Night. And I thought because of my experience there that I was going to simply hate this game, but I am happy to say that the issues that I had with Bloodstained were not present here. This is pretty pure. There were a few types of enemies that felt a little bit harder to hit than others, but it all felt very intentional rather than just retro jank. One kind of unusual thing about this game is in order to cast a spell, you have to do a Street Fighter-esque button combo. That meant that I basically never used a spell for the entire playthrough. But I didn't even notice that they were missing, so obviously that wasn't a big deal. Using the sub-weapon by holding up can be frustrating. I get it, it's how it's always been. I didn't so much have trouble using the sub-weapon as I had trouble not using it sometimes. If an enemy was above me and I was trying to attack up, I would often just throw my sub-weapon somewhere useless and waste my hearts. In the background right now, you can see me having a conversation with one of the NPCs, Maria. She just ran off, and honestly, the conversations were hilarious in this game. It's like everything you wanted from the conversations in Resident Evil, like the bad translations and things like that, except it happens more often in this game, which is perfect. I ended up landing on an 8 out of 10 for the controls here. I took off points because of the weird Street Fighter combos. That may be a bonus for somebody, but for me, that's more of a negative. Not preferring to use the spells because of the combo system didn't hurt the game much for me, but it seems completely unnecessary, so I'm taking off some points. Overall, the controls feel like they were designed first and the enemies were designed second. And what I mean by that is they designed the enemies to work well with the controls and to be fightable with the controls that they had. And that is very appreciated, and I can see that in the design of the enemy. Some enemies in this game made me feel like I had to use my shield, which is an optional equipable weapon in this game. Sometimes my sub-weapon shined. It was a really good variety. There were even some enemies that were unhittable when they were doing their typical idle animation, which normally would be a negative, but it's done really well in this game. And what I mean by unhittable is if you just do your regular forward attack, it would go right over their heads or, right under them if they were flying. And when I say it's done really well, I mean it forced me to take a second, wait for them to do their attack animation, and then hit them when they were attackable. Things like that alone tell me that this gameplay section is going to be mostly praise. I can tell they knew what they were doing, and I can tell they put thought into it. You can tell with some of these older games that they designed a lot of enemies and they tried to make them interesting, but they didn't really think about how the player was going to interact with those enemies. Here, that is super not the case. I really wanted this section of the game to be included somewhere in the video just because these enemies are so cool. Look at how they explode. They're not particularly hard or anything like that, but they're memorable just because they're awesome. I mean, look at this. It's some kind of scorpion with a woman instead of a stinger, and it's... How can you not appreciate this design? I mean, look at the explosion. Isn't that awesome? I tend to take very brief notes while I'm playing a game just so I can remember certain things, how I felt at certain parts of the game. And at about this point in the game, probably an hour, hour and a half in, I felt very, very powerful. There were still things that I was finding that were giving me pause, such as this stone mechanic. I wasn't 100% sure how to deal with this. But one of the notes that I made was that I felt very powerful. And that could be a good thing or a bad thing in a game, depending on how it's used. But in this game, I'm going to have to take some major points off, because while I felt very powerful at this point in the game, by about hour 4, which is getting kind of close to the end of the game if you don't do the extra bits at the end, by hour 4, I was writing in my notes that I feel like an unstoppable god. And admittedly, while it was pretty cool to feel unstoppable, the difficulty level was basically completely gone by that point. It's really sad to say, but I would say that is the biggest negative for this game, is just the power level keeps going up. It ended up feeling like I was getting a lot more powerful, but the enemies were not. So here comes the obligatory boss fight of the video. You can see I'm on 18 health in the top left, so this boss is going to be pretty tough. I just got to use a lot of strategy here, and really just, can't afford to take a hit. You can see he's doing a lot of cool attacks and everything, and this really highlights the main issue I have with this game is it's just so easy. And there he is, he's dead. You may be tempted to think that I just picked the easiest boss in the game to make a point, but really, basically every boss I found was exactly like this. I would either hit my sub weapon 5 or 6 times and they would die before they even got to move, or they would just do 1 damage per hit, so I could just stand there and smack them with my flail the entire time with no danger at all. So for those reasons, I am giving gameplay a 6. There is no challenge here outside of the first hour of the game. The gameplay is good, don't get me wrong, but excellent gameplay needs to have at least some level of difficulty, and it's just not here. Now for story and sound. Let's start with sound first. It's awesome. The sound is great. The music, you can tell that the music was made when Resident Evil 1 was fresh on their minds. Even some, very few, but some of the sound effects were lifted directly from Resident Evil 1 or the other way around, who knows. But I appreciated all of that. Resident Evil 1 is one of my favorite games of all time. Really, really good. Sound design, excellent. In fact, I give it a perfect score. The music, amazing. Monster sounds, amazing. The story's interesting. It takes some unexpected turns. It's not super heavy on story, but what is here is pretty good. The character dialogue was consistently hilarious, which is a major plus for me. I ended up not seeing the major bonus area at the end of the game because I simply didn't know it existed or to go for it during my playthrough, and I'm pretty sure I'm too late at this point. But I felt that the story was wrapped up pretty nicely. So I'm going to give music a 5 out of 5 and story a 4 out of 5. Nothing to complain about. That puts my final score solidly in B territory. Time to beat 6 hours and change. How would I fix this game? I feel like you can already guess it. I would make it harder. I don't say that for a lot of games, but this one really needs it. Really needs the difficulty punched up. Should you play this game in current year? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is a historical game in that this is one of the very first times that something like this was done, or at least gained mainstream popularity. This is absolutely worth revisiting in current year. I just wouldn't expect it to challenge you very much. Thank you guys for watching. Common Man Game Reviews. Check me out on YouTube. I've been doing my live streams over there lately. Not sure what game I'm playing next, but whatever game it is, you'll catch it on YouTube. Thank you guys so much for the support. Thank you guys for all the views on my Super Metroid video, and I will see you next time. Be good to each other.